Wow, what is up, everyone? Welcome back for yet another episode of the Off Grid podcast. Now, I don't know if you have heard of a little thing called running. One leg in front of the other. You can do it quickly, you can do it for a long time, or you can do both. This guy went for the latter. My guest this week is with Jack Pitcher. Now, Jack holds the British world record for running across Australia. He ran from Perth to Bondi over 2,684 miles, completing it in the fastest time with the equivalent of 95 marathons done in just 61 days. Wowee. This guy loves running. Maybe after that he didn't, but he still loves it every now and then now. Now, in this conversation, we talk about why not to have a plan B in life, how a roofer from Bracknell that wasn't even a runner set a British running record, being prepared to die for your dream, what isn't spoken about with men's mental health and living with depression, and the underdog mentality with little to no sponsors, followers, or resources. This episode is raw, upfront, unfiltered, honest, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. On with the podcast. Jack, welcome to the Off Grid podcast, mate.
Hi Jake, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, very good, mate. I'm excited to get into this chat because you're someone who has really led their life. You've got a clear sort of single-mindedness about you of the way that you go about life. And one of the things is just being this big believer in people following their dreams with no plan B. I wanted to know, why should people not have a backup plan?
Yeah, mate, it's sometimes anything in life, simplicity is genius sometimes. People might not agree with me, that's absolutely fine, but I really do believe simplicity is genius. We have one life, if we're lucky, we might get 80, 85 years, maybe even more. Spend your whole time just chasing the thing you love, and having a laugh along the way. I really do believe just chasing your dreams, whether you get very successful very quickly or whether it's a grind or whether you are really up against it, just that chase, just that pursuit of trying to become the person you want to be or the thing you want to be will be the answer to most of your problems. I realized that a few years ago. I was working in a job I hated. I was a roofer. I couldn't care less about people's roofs. It's like, do you know what I mean? It wasn't for me. And I thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life. This isn't where I want to be. And every time I was roofing, all I cared about was being a motivational speaker, going around the world, getting invited from businesses to speak about my journey, to speak about my story. And I thought, that's all I care about. I've gone through too much. I've seen too much in my life. And I thought I can give back to people that are struggling. And I thought I have to do something impressive for people to listen. So I dropped my tools. I didn't go back to a roof. And I attempted to run across one of the biggest countries on the planet. And I threw every bit of money I had and thought, it will come back eventually. One day I'll be offered a speech, which is amazing money, and I'll start to see that money come back to me. And I thought, I don't have a plan B. My plan B should be another route to plan A. Let's just go for it. And like I said, it's paying off. I'm now living the life I want to live. I'm not on a roof in the freezing cold. I'm going to speeches. I'm networking with motivational speakers. I'm getting my name out there. I'm working with marketing managers and project managers to attempt another big running challenge. I'm working with brands. I'm meeting special forces, and my whole life has changed because I dared to dream. And I chased my dream and had no backup plan. So that is the importance of chasing what you love, because we're not here for long. So yeah, that is the best advice. That is the best thing you can do in this world.
So much of having a plan B seems to be risk mitigation, wanting to spread out the chances of something going wrong. But what do you think the risk of having a plan B is?
The risk of having a plan B is, or a backup plan, is you sometimes get drawn to it pretty quickly because you realize that the one thing you want is not going to come overnight. So plan B is your safety blanket. Plan B is, yeah, that'll do. I'm pretty content with that. You get a bit complacent. And plan B, the risk of taking plan B is in a few years' time, you look back at your life and go, I made the wrong decision. I'm not happy. This is a burden on me for the rest of my life. I gave up at the first hurdle and I chose plan B. I chose a backup plan. There's massive risks with taking plan B. Don't get me wrong. I mean, when I was at school doing your GCSEs and things, teachers would always say, have a backup plan, And the problem is I never heard teachers go after what you want in life. It's simple as that. Really believe, really work hard, keep going at everything you want. We're encouraged to think about a plan B before we've even had a full-time job. And that's where I think it's going wrong. The plan B is very, very dangerous because going after what you want in life is painful. There is sacrifice. It might cost you thousands of pounds. It might cost you health. It might cost everything you have. But just imagine if it pays off. And that's what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it for, but what about if it works out? And I wouldn't like to have kids in the future one day and they ask me, what did I dream about? And I go, well, I want to be a motivational speaker. And they go, all right, well, why are you a roofer? Difficult conversation. So that's the risk is not inspiring your family or your friends or random people. That's my risk anyway. People might disagree. People might completely agree. That's absolutely fine. But they're the risks I think are out there for taking your plan B for sure.
You've got a real sense of underdog about you. Like you're definitely the sort of competitive spirit in you, and saying like roofer from Bracknell almost seems like kind of part of your identity. So that you're part of, like, you're from humble beginnings, and then you've kind of gone out there into the world and done this incredible feat of endurance. Where does that competitiveness within you come from?
It's a good question. Very good question. I'd definitely say from my younger years, my mum was a nurse for 30 odd years. My dad was a bricklayer and he was in the Territorial Army. And unfortunately, he passed away when I was 12. So growing up in a very normal, humble household where my mum had to work 11-hour days to keep the house, to put food on the table for me and my sister. We never went without, but we never got everything. Seeing my mum graft, seeing real struggle and sacrifice, I grew up with that. I became the man of the house at 12. So I knew how much it took for a good life to get by. And that is why seeing what I've seen growing up and having those feelings I've had growing up without having my dad around, I might fail at things, but I'll never give up. It's not in my DNA to. I haven't been raised to give up. I never saw my mum give up. So the importance of being an underdog is very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Special, because no one wants to beat an underdog. No one looks at an underdog and goes, well, I've got him in the bag. He's fine. He's nothing. But the underdog, when they come out on top, sometimes they get to the top and they stay there because they've had nothing in their life. They've had nothing else. Even out in Australia, I was the underdog. I had to run in Crocs for 150 miles because I had no shoes. There's a picture of me on the BBC running in Crocs in the desert. I had to run 150 miles in Crocs because I had no shoe sponsor. I wasn't an influencer. So that will never change. I'll always be the underdog. I'll always be Jack from Bracknell rather than, British runner. I'm not a runner. I was someone who just decided to change their life. So the importance of being an underdog will carry you more than any form of money, any form of deal with a company. Being the underdog and growing up how you know, in your environment as a kid and your stories you tell in your head and the things you see with your eyes, mate, they'll carry you more than any form of money. So I won't change.
So I want to get into that. Let's start. Well, the overall question, I guess, would be how does a roofer from Bracknell set a British record? But let's start with the mentality before we get into the practicalities of it. How do you bring yourself to get the mindset to first believe that this idea of yours is actually going to happen? Because we've all got ideas. We've all got a mate that wants to start a business and another one that's going to do this big adventure, but very few and far between are the ones who actually set out to back themselves and go and do it. So from that moment that you're a roofer and you're saying to yourself, I'm going to go and set this British record running across Australia, and you mentioned you weren't even a runner. What's the mentality going on there? How do you get to that point?
It's a great question again. It's so while I was roofing, I had a relationship end that caused me a lot of, pain. I was looking back at it, I was depressed, very depressed. It was a very out of the ordinary thing to happen. And in that time, I lost a good friend. He passed away. And I was going into work at a job I hated. And it started to really affect my mental health. And I remember walking back from the gym, and I was very open at the fact that I'm actually not scared of dying. I'm so unhappy with my circumstances that I'm not afraid to die. I wasn't suicidal, but I was very open with the thought of not being around anymore. And I told myself, if I'm not scared of dying, then why should I be scared of failure? Doesn't make any sense. Death is probably one of the scariest things anyone could go through. And I wasn't scared of it. So why should I be scared of failure? And I thought, you know what? If I can harness that and use that every day to my advantage, I can turn my life around. And that's where it came from. That moment in my life, combined with the fact that I come from a family that have worked hard for every penny they've had, that have grafted. I've seen my dad passed away when I was 12. I was the underdog, and I come from a normal house. So, I was never been blessed with money. I've always had to work for everything I had. So combined with my upbringing and my situation a couple of years ago, it just absolutely got the beast in me. And my theory paid off. I wasn't scared of dying. And it got me a record, and it got me the life I wanted. So that's where that motivation come from, that mindset come from.
And was there an actual moment where you had that realization, or was this kind of something that happened over time? Was there a specific point where you're like, actually, I'm not scared of dying, and that realization came to you?
Yeah, probably about 6 months, 7 months after my relationship ended and my friend passed away, I wanted to test that theory of, if I'm not scared of dying, why should I be scared of failure? And I signed up for a 160k run, 103-mile run. The most I've ever done is half a marathon. And I'm just thinking, let's go, let's bag some wine gums up, let's take some Vaseline, let's get the Spotify on, and let's test my theory out. Why not? So I went there, I went up to Chester, and I thought, I'm not stopping till I finish this race. I don't care. Let's give it a go. And there were some good runners there, people that have been ultra running for years, and out of 220 people, I came in the top 100. I've only ever done a half marathon. And the whole time I was running, I thought, come on, let's have it. Let's have it. I ain't scared of dying. I'm not happy anyway. Let's have it. And I got there, and then the feeling I had after finishing that 100-mile race wasn't, oh my God, I'm never doing that again. I felt absolutely unshackled. I felt there's something for me in this world of ultra running. There's something for me in this world of pushing myself beyond belief, because in a weird way, I got a thrill out of it. I thought, so many people said, you ain't run 100 miles, mate. Like, you're fit, but you ain't run 100 miles. And I got a kick out of it. And I just decided to do that times 4,000 in Australia. And the same thing happened. So that was the moment that I knew my theory worked, was the Chester Ultra, which was about 6, 7 months before I decided to go to Australia.
Wow. Okay, so 6, 7 months before you decide to go to Australia, that was when you'd run your first ultra, or longer than half a marathon, so about 13 to 15 miles. What happened in those 7 to 6 months in the build up practically? For people who are thinking, I'm not an athlete, I'm not an influencer, but hell yeah, like I want to do something like that. How do you actually practically go about it? What's the first step? What's the process to getting to Australia and actually going for it?
So I was with my friend Josh, who's currently serving in the British Army now. And he was like, look, I've got 8 months before I'm in the army. I want to do something cool with my life. And I was like, he caught me at the right time, because I said, well, I'm unhappy in my job. You know, I've got some savings, like, let's have a chat about things. And I said, oh, why don't we do something in Australia? And then the idea come to us is, why don't we be the first British people to run the perimeter of Australia? That was our original plan, to run the perimeter. Start at Darwin, right at the top, clockwise all the way back up to Darwin. So we looked at it and we thought, right, we need to look at visas. We need to look at a van, a trailer. We need to try and get sponsors in. We need to get a videographer. And we'd done that. We put our money together. We got a 4x4. We got a trailer. My friend Alaric, who's a videographer, quit his job to come with us. And some few family friends gave us a bit of money to get by. And that was the plan, was Project Perimeter, we called it. And about a week into getting to Australia and driving, we had an awful car crash. We rolled down the motorway about 70 mile per hour with our trailer and our 4x4. We're lucky to be alive. If it wasn't for the trailer, I think we'd be dead. And we lost thousands of pounds. We lost our vehicle. We lost our kit. Something that I've spent my whole savings on, just gone. So we were stranded in a petrol station desert, 10 days working out what we're going to do. We've seen our 4x4 get towed off. We've seen everything get towed off. And we're sat there with a couple of bags of equipment thinking, what now? So we decided to come up with the idea to run across Australia rather than around it. So we had to adapt. But the planning for it was a pretty quick turnaround, going to Australia and obviously being in Australia as well. But it was right, visas, 4x4, let's get as much money we can in the Monzo, and let's just go out there, see what happens. You know, sometimes when you overplan, you can get a bit overstimulated and a bit overwhelmed about things. We thought, let's have loads of money on a card, let's get a 4x4 in a van, and let's just go out there and document the whole thing. It was that easy. It really was. We closed our eyes and jumped, man. It was the best thing I've ever done.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Wow, that's like so simple. Because
Yeah.
I thought, undertaking something like that, my first thoughts were 6 to 7 months isn't enough time. That you'd need like more time to plan and make sure you can bring in sponsorship, or just to even afford it, something like that. But even a week later, you're able to make it happen, which is just incredible. Um, okay, so you arrive out in Australia, things haven't gone to plan up to this point, and that day one, when you set out to run across the length of Australia, was that what was in your mindset? Were you like, I'm going to do this now, we're going to make this new thing work?
Yeah. Yeah. We was, like I said, we was on a bit of a time, because Josh had to be back for a certain month, the army. He couldn't miss it. So we thought, we can't do the perimeter anymore. We've lost too much time with losing the vehicle, losing the money. We were stranded in the middle of the desert. We was at this petrol station campsite for about 10 days, living off meal deals, right? And we thought, we have to do something. I'll quit my job. Alaric's quit his job. I've spent thousands of pounds on this. I'm not coming home empty-handed. I'm not doing it. So we sat down in this little bar there, and we worked out that we were going to run across Australia rather than around it. So we thought, right, how do we go about it? So we scrapped our 4x4 for hardly any money. We borrowed off family. We put an Instagram post out saying, this is our new plan. Please get behind and share, hoping Lad Bible might pick it up. I hope just something, you know. And unfortunately, it didn't. We thought, right, it's just us. We've got to do this. So we hired a car and we drove from Darwin to Perth. It's about a 33-hour car journey. And we've done it without stopping. We just thought, let's just get there. We'll swap the drivers over. And we kept taking turns, and we got to Perth. And we had a family friend out there who said, come stay with me for a week. We've never met this family. It was just, my cameraman was like, yeah, it's like my girlfriend's mum's like friend's brother or something. Seriously, like, I'm not even joking, Jake. It was like that. And we thought, who the hell are these people? They were so welcoming. They come in, they fed us, they gave us a room each. And then we picked up a van, like a motorhome. We rented a motorhome. And then we put a load of food in the van. We threw our stuff in there. We got to Cottesloe Beach on Perth. And we said, we're going to run across Australia. That was it. We had a map, we had a sat nav, we had chargers. And we thought, we are not stopping till we get to Bondi Beach.
So you've spoken about not having a plan B, but what's the importance for people to shift the dream, to change the goalposts and be flexible in what it is you set out to do?
Yeah, it's so important, because I could have easily come home and gone, I'll go back to my job. But I was so determined that my plan A was to go to Australia and get a running record, create British history. That's all I cared about. My plan B could have been, well, if I get injured, it doesn't happen, I'll go back to this job. I was so determined, petrified of coming home without anything, that I was going to go, you know what, I'll adapt. And like I said, your plan B has to be another route to plan A. And I've lived that experience. I've been through that experience, and it pays off every time, because people already thought, bloody hell, he's had that car crash was awful. We had some photos and videos, and people saw it and thought, he's definitely coming home. And I went, no, I'm not. I'm staying out here. I'm going to get this British record. I'm not coming home empty-handed. So when people say, well, you know, have you lived through that? I said, I have. You know, I took my own advice, and my plan B was another route to plan A. So that's why it's important, because I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. I wouldn't be motivational speaking. I wouldn't be working with cool brands if I decided to fly home.
Now, you've spoken about a big driving motivation for you being your dad, who died when you were a 12-year-old boy. How would you describe that motivation that you feel within you?
Yeah, it's I think it's very unique. I think a lot of people lose their parents. It's horrible. There's a lot of people in similar positions to me, even probably worse. They might have lost both their parents at the same time. So I'm incredibly fortunate to have my mum still here, but it was almost anger at the world. I was very angry, thinking, why me? Like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life not having a dad. So I was very angry at the world, very, very bitter at the world. And it's not the right emotion to have, because anger and bitter and resentment can bring out the worst in someone, but also channeled properly brings out the best in someone. You've got to be a little bit angry with the world sometimes to get the best out of you. And I use that going, why me? Why me? I'm going to show the world that, you know, it's not an excuse to end up a bit of a bum in life, and because you lost your dad. I want to show all the kids out there that if your family goes through a problem, you can really have your life changed. And I've done it for people that were suffering. I've done it for people that were similar to my position. You know, I think men's mental health isn't really. We keep raising awareness about men's mental health, which is good, but everyone knows what men's mental health is now. We should really be hitting it, striking, you know, while the iron's hot, going, this is how I felt, this is how I dealt with it, not just constantly raising awareness for it. We need to put it out there. We need to show the world that, you know, how strong men can be. And yeah, that's what it is. It all sort of snowballed into one emotion. So that's what it was.
I think we can all sometimes relate to that. I certainly can, where motivation can sometimes be dark. It's not, it's in my own experience, it didn't feel good, but
Mm.
it certainly helped. Um, would you say that that motivation is like a dark motivation in you? And if so, how do you kind of manage it so that it doesn't overcome you?
That's a great question. And I'd love to hear your experience of that as well. It sounds like you've got a story to tell, but yeah, it's for me, we always hear that saying that motivation is great, but it's discipline that gets you through. We hear it, and I do agree with it. I think it's true, but I like the concept of, for me, it's the motivation over discipline, because everyone gets motivation every day. You have it every day. You don't have it for 24 hours a day, but you get periods in the day where you feel motivated, and it's what you do with that motivation. So I might feel highly motivated for an hour, right? I might feel, yeah, come on, I've got my spark back or whatever. It's what you do with that motivation, whether you study for an hour, practice a speech for an hour, train for an hour, lift weights for an hour. For me, I live off that moment of motivation that gets me through the days. There's times where I've trained when I've had discipline, but there's no buzz there. You know, I always, the second I feel motivated to do something, I do it. And but it's difficult because everyone has different types of motivation, right? Money, um, big house, or this or that. But mine's my family. Mine's giving back to the people that have given to me. Mine's every time I think about earning a great deal of money one day, I'm not thinking about what I want to buy with it. I'm thinking about what I can give with it. Um, that's my motivation because, like I said, I never had everything as a kid. You know, we got by. We struggled, but we got by, and that for me in my head is the reason why I will never give up. And that's my motivation to give back to my family, to say, look, we've been through hell, but you know, this is what I've done for us. This is I can give back to you now. So it's a great question, actually. It's just a very good question. Whether the motivation's a dark place or it's a good place, either way, it depends how you channel it. It's how you use it. Don't take it for granted because it might not be around all the time. But I'd like to hear what you went through, why you think, if there's is there a reason why you think that as well?
Yeah. My experiences of like wondering why I was so motivated, so determined, so ambitious. I just started realizing that actually it was actually driven by a lot of insecurity than anything to do with like I'm just so like positive positively ambitious in the world. It was actually kind of like having to prove people that like that I am who I say I am and that I'm like driven beyond belief. And then when I dug into that, it kind of like, well, I guess like everything, it just kind of goes back to childhood, feeling alone throughout a lot of my childhood as a boy, feeling like not wanted by the world. And so then kind of coming through as to like, well, let me prove myself to you. Let me show you how like you should want me for whatever reason. And actually realizing maybe in the last couple of years how um, that has been a massive driver to start these different businesses and keep going. But actually if it's 24/7 and it's the whole time, it's completely exhausting.
Yeah.
And actually just overall struggle to find a sort of inner sense of like, okay, you've done enough now, like you're good. um so yeah, still something I'm dealing with, and certainly something that I use to push myself. But I think hearing you talk about it as like something to be grateful for, because it's not always going to be there. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, mate, it's like I said, it's you see so many different people from so many different walks of life and nature and nurture and what they've gone through and how motivated someone is. Like, you should, yeah, it's you don't know how long this motivation is going to be around for. And the problem is, sorry, with me running across Australia, it was I said that my motivation to do it, I sort of wanted to change it into this is survival for me rather than, oh, I want to be a great motivational speaker or an influencer. This is survival for me because when you're trying to survive something, we see it in films, we read it in books, we see it, in walks of life. When that survival instinct kicks in, you are relentless, absolutely relentless. And I told myself, this is survival for me because if I don't do this run, if I don't act this way, if I don't push through this insane amount of pain, I'm not going to become a motivational speaker. I'm not going to have the house I wanted. I'm not going to be able to give back to the family that I wanted. This is survival. And when you tell yourself it's survival rather than just motivation, you just completely go at it again. Just when you have 40, just when you think you're done, you've got another 40% left. So it's all about your perspective, and everything I do now, every speech I do, every message I send, every email I send, every phone call I try and call someone, every DM on Instagram, I'm not thinking about an opportunity. For me, it's survival. So that's why I can't stop. And when I feel like I get to a place in my life where you go, you know what? I look back and I go, I've earned this house. I've earned this car. I've made an incredible life for myself, for my family, my friends, my loved ones. I've helped so many people to go out and get what they want in life. I'll sit back and go, well, I survived. I've done enough. But until then, I haven't. It's survival every day. And that's how I look at it. And that's why I can't stop. Because I know if I stop, I'll then be worried that I'll look for a plan B. So tell yourself in hard times it's survival and your perspective will change and you might get a response out of you you've never seen before.
Toughness. You've got this this mindset of being tough, and you're coming from a line of men, ex-forces as well. It's maybe sort of passed down generationally, but you're growing up as well. So clearly, like, it's tough. Everything kind of sounds tough. What's your view on society at the moment? There's quite a lot of chat about the younger generations not being as tough and being snowflake generation, things like that. What's your perspective on society at the moment in regards to toughness in the world?
It's difficult. It's very difficult because I saw my granddad yesterday. He's 91 and he's just had a big operation and he's walking about. He's sharp as anything and he's been through a lot. He grew up around the Blitz. He got shipped out to the Suez Canal fighting. He's lived a life, but he's been tough because he grew up in a generation where men should pull your socks up, son, let's go at it again. So there's proof it works. There's proof that being tough and hiding your emotions can make people strong, whether that's men or women. This be a man's man, be this, be that. It's for both sexes, right? And there's been proof that the older generation are stronger. I feel if there was a blitz right now in London, I think we wouldn't react like our grandparents did. People going out and lifting bricks on their shoulders and moving rubble. I don't think we do that now. I think people would, but not everyone. And the problem is we should be very open with how we feel because the problem is our world's different to their world now. So we're not in the same world. So there's going to be differences. But I believe we should have a nice combination of a bit of encouragement, like, come on, let's be stronger here. because it's true, we shouldn't pander to people all the time because he doesn't create their character. But at the same time, we should highlight that it is important to speak about your feelings because it's a very dangerous world we live in. But also we should have the right balance of a time and a place for telling someone, come on, be stronger. But it's just a very weird world where everything's instant gratification as well. Everything's instant, you know. You want to look at a house, you go on a website, an app. You want to order food, it's on an app. You want to have a date for the night, it's on an app. So everything's instant gratification. And I think that's the problem, is that like in my parents' and grandparents' generation, they had things were in levels, right? You had to do this, to do that, to do that, to do this. And they created that dopamine of having that. And that's what made them strong and resilient. But with us, everything's instant. And I think that's a problem as well. So I don't know. I think having a right combination of being there for someone, especially men, because it's a tough world for men. I don't think we speak enough about that. I think quite rightfully so. We speak about how hard it is being a woman in this world. 100%. They go through a lot of things we don't. But I don't think we speak enough about what the actual problem is being a man in today's society. There's a lot of pressure on us all the time that never gets spoken about. So it's a weird one, Jake. I can't lie. It's a very strange one. I can't really answer that question. I think we just need to find the perfect balance of telling people to be strong and also telling people that it's okay to be not okay. I think we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, rather than just trying to nail the middle as much as possible. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I was going to say let's talk about it. What are maybe what do you think are like the pressures on men that other genders wouldn't realize that?
Yeah.
Because for me, my view on it is I'm 26 and I've started seeing myself as a little bit older now because I I've even seen in my own views what might be called like old school. Like
Mm,
I was definitely brought up to like open a door for a lady, like the whole idea of like being chivalrous and like being a gentleman. I was brought up to be like that. Whereas even now that seems like kind of outdated in a way sometimes. And the pressures I felt on myself are like just sometimes feeling like, am I like, if I'm not supporting the people that I love, if I'm not contributing, if I'm not of use, then what's the point of me? And
mm,
there's definitely that as a driver. I think it's a massive blow for men to lose their jobs, perhaps more than for women, just because so much of our identity, perhaps even genetics, is kind of built in this kind of primal instinct of protection
yeah.
and looking after people. And if we're not doing that and we're not making contributions, I think that men in particular struggle with that. When you talk about pressures men feel that other people might not realize, what's like the first thing that comes to mind that a pressure people might not realize?
I think there's loads of, I think, like for example in society, right? Um, I remember I can't remember what shop it was, but there was a trend of t-shirts being sold with "men are trash" on the front. And as much as someone might look at that and go, it's funny, but why is that even a thing? You know, like you have the biggest killer in men, suicide, right? And you're wearing a t-shirt saying "men are trash," stuff like that. And you're like, what are we doing? And then we have this whole, I can't lie, I love watching dating shows, right? I love it. It's my guilty pleasure, right? Um, whether it's married at first sight or first dates, I love it. And the big difference in stuff like that is there's some things we're grown up with that you can't say to women, right? You're not allowed to. For instance, you might make a comment on their figure or how they look, and it's just like you're not allowed to. It's just absolutely forbidden. And the second a man might say something, whether it's in a derogatory way or just like an honest way, it's treated the same. And you hear a lot of women will say stuff like, he's too small, he doesn't earn enough, he doesn't have good facial hair. And it's all laughed off. It's all laughed off. But if a man was to say, she's too big, she's too tall, she's too fat, she doesn't earn enough money, they'd be made out to be public enemy number one. And I think that's what doesn't help the situation, right? Is for example, look at the incident with Will Smith. He was crying on that interview, finding out his wife cheated on him. That was made into a meme. He's crying because he's probably his family's been ruined. It was a very tough conversation to have. And it was put on TV and there was memes made out about him crying. And I just don't think men's feelings are really, really ever truly considered by a lot of people, men included. Men will look at that and go, oh, it's funny. Oh, it's funny. Stop crying, mate. So men can be just as bad as women, but I don't think men's feelings are ever really truly considered by a lot of people. And I think that's the problem. I think just because we should be tough, we're told to be tough. When we do show a bit of emotion, like I don't actually like that. It's all, come on, man up. But it's like, it's funny that that man up suits you when you want, but if I was to say anything about a woman, I'm not allowed to. So I just feel like we're in society with the wrong person. Men just can't win with the wrong person. And I think it's a very confusing time to be a man. Whether I answered your question there, I'm not too sure, but there's a few examples of how society can treat men.
Well, you've probably got a unique experience because you're open about having suffered with your depression and mental health in the past. You've got DMs from men in your inbox opening up about how they're feeling in their lives who may not have opened up to anyone else about that private matter. What in your unique experience have you realized about men's mental health? What are they messaging you about?
Do you know what? It's they just say they're struggling. They just say they're struggling, but they don't know what with. They just go, I feel down all the time. I don't feel I have a purpose. I just feel I'm ignored. And it's difficult because, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I do feel that chasing what you love with everything you have will be the answer to most of your problems. I really do believe that. And there's a lot of lads out there that are ignored. There's a huge epidemic of male loneliness right now. Like for example, like if I was to break up with my girlfriend, if she really wanted to, I reckon she could be on a date next week, just because that's how society is. Whereas blokes are ignored a lot, and they don't feel listened to. Every opinion they have, they're misogynistic, they're this, they're that, and they're shut down quite quickly. And I just feel like blokes don't have a voice. And I feel that when they do finally they bottle it and they bottle it and bottle it because they're told from so many people to man up and to just get on with it. When they finally open up about how they feel, they're either labeled angry or irrational or emotional. And I think that's what the problem is. I think a lot of lads are struggling, but they don't understand what with. Whether there's deeper meaning there, like stuff with their family that I'm not too sure about, but I feel it's just they don't have a purpose. and they don't want to say it. They're like, I hate my job, hate this, hate that. And we're constantly exposed to life from lives of people that doesn't exist. You see all these influencers, all these holidays and brands and this and that, and that doesn't really exist. It only does for a certain amount of people. We're seeing a 0.1% of someone's life 24 hours a day on Instagram. And we are comparing ourselves to millionaires. And I don't think that helps either. And I think they are not being present of, I've got a house, I've got a job, I've got a lovely family. They're constantly having a carrot dangled in their face of, this is the life you could have. And they've got one foot in that life and they've got one foot in their life and they don't know what makes them happy. And I think that's the problem.
It's amazing how you're able to be so open about what it is that you go through whilst achieving such incredible things, because it's not this kind of wallowing. It's not just like, it's not feeling sorry for yourself. It's not this sense of just like dampening. It's actually just being honest about how you feel, and then critically doing something about it and channeling that energy somewhere. And what massively inspires me about your journey and what you're doing is, you're not an athlete and you're not an influencer, and you are just this regular bloke from Bracknell who decides to go and do these incredible things because it's coming from that mindset of how you approach it. And I realize you've also spoken about potentially doing like Iceland plans this year, but then you've had like other companies go in there and they do that endurance feat before you, and they're kind of ahead of the game in that sense, because you haven't got the sponsoring and the backing. How do you kind of manage that now you're kind of done? You've still got that mindset, you've done some incredible feats for endurance, and you've got the stamp, the British record. How do you manage it now with these big competitions coming in where there's sponsors and brands who have simply just got more resources?
Yeah, I can't lie. I'd be lying to say if it didn't bother me. It massively does, because I was planning Iceland for quite a lot of last year. I was working 55, 60-hour weeks, trying to network, trying to call. I sent thousands of emails last year. I was trying to train as well. I was burning myself out. And then I see that Represent 247 are starting a relay race with all their influencers in Iceland. And it was exactly the same route I was planning to run. And my heart sank because I thought, what a coincidence. How was that? Mine was pretty niche. Mine was lighthouse to lighthouse. There's one lighthouse at the northerly point of Iceland and one lighthouse at the most southerly point of Iceland. And I said I was going to run from lighthouse to lighthouse across Iceland. And then a few months later, 247 Represent, they show the world what they're planning to do as a relay with their influencers. And I thought, that's too similar. What's happened here? How is that possible? And there was me having sleepless nights, emailing and calling and DMing, and they just go and do it because they've got the money. And it annoys me because as much as these influencers that they took out to run Iceland are big in their own right because they're very successful, very disciplined, but it was a kick in the teeth because I ran 4,300K across one of the biggest countries in the world, and it wasn't enough to be recognized. And I thought I should be there with them. And I never was. It was so hard because, like I said, that run almost killed me. I didn't even have food with me. I didn't even have a sports therapist. I went through absolute hell. And it was a huge kick in the teeth. But stuff like that, you know, is almost like a rope. You either pull yourself out of it or you hang yourself with it. And I said, no, I'm still gonna pursue Iceland, but when I go out and do it, I'm gonna say it took seven athletes to do this. I'm doing it on my own. And that's the spin I'd like to do is celebrate what they've done and say I'm gonna go do it on my own. So the story will still continue, but it's hard when you see, because those athletes will not be up till midnight emailing. They'll be waking up. They won't be going to a 9 till 5. They'll be training every day. They won't pay for their gym. They won't pay for their shoes. They won't pay for anything. And I'm up till midnight trying to find people to email to get a free pair of shoes. So it was hard, but like I said, I like being the underdog because I just feel that when I do achieve what I want to achieve, it's going to feel so much better that I absolutely worked my ass off for it. I'm not saying they didn't, but they've got a huge advantage, and they've had to start somewhere themselves. So I can't knock them at all. They're incredible for their own reasons, but it's very hard when you see other people just getting given that when you've had to graft for it. And then when you finally do something big, you don't get as much attention as what they have. That's what I find difficult. But I have no idea why, but hopefully I'll find out why, but we'll see.
The journey continues.
It
And
will, mate.
1 month ago, you quit your 9 to 5, decided to go all in, ran 100 kilometers on a run track. What's the mindset going into this next year? And for those who are listening to you and they're thinking, I want to do that, whether it's, in business or they want to, or in music or as an athlete, whatever it is, but they're not there yet. They're nowhere near there yet. And they're thinking, yeah, I want to do that. What's that mindset going into it that you would share with them?
I'd dig deep and I'd sit down and look at your life and go, are you happy? Are you content? If the answer is no, that feeling of being honest with yourself and going, I hate the life I live, let that be the motivation every day to go and chase what you want. Because unfortunately, we live in a world where money and opportunity does make the world go round, and you can be happy with not a lot. But if you're not happy with what you have now and you genuinely aren't happy and you know you're capable of achieving more, let that be the motivation. Close your eyes and jump. It's so important to close your eyes and jump because I've had more help, more support from strangers than people that I've known for 10 years. I've had more opportunity given to me than from one conversation from a random person. So sometimes just going out and achieving what you want to achieve and pushing to what you want to get, someone's going to pay attention and someone's going to honestly invest in you and you have no idea when it's going to come. So keep being yourself, be a likable person, be an honest person, and the right people will come in your life and stay. And they'll help you get to the top because no one's self-made. No one's self-made. Richard Branson isn't self-made. No one's self-made. Everyone's had little wins from people here and there to get them up to the top. So dare to dream and people will follow and just be honest, be happy and chase what you love, everything you got. And whether it takes 10 years or 20 years or 80 years, you want to get to a point where your feet are up and go, yeah, you know what, I've done it. I'm happy. And if I get there at 85, I'll take it now because the world's a weird place. And sometimes if you live it properly, we're here a long old time. If you don't live it properly, we're here for a very short time. So live it properly and just, you're never going to be here again. You're never going to be on this planet again. This weird rock in the middle of space. We're never going to be here. So just do it. Just do it.
Jack, thank you very much for coming onto the pod and being raw. That's the word that springs to mind with you. Just this unfiltered character that I feel really lucky to have spoken to at the start of what their journey is. It feels like a real privilege to speak to someone who's becoming. And yeah, being good for me. Your unfiltered rawness is something that is very disarming, and just makes me want to kind of open up, go on a run, have a hug at the end of it. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you, Matt. It means a lot. Like I said, thanks for having me on. And yeah, we'll meet up in London, mate. We'll have a beer and we'll have another chat. 100%.
Beer and a run. Let's do it.
That's it. We'll go on a run.
All right, Jack. Thanks a lot, mate.
Cheers, Jake. Take care.